Well, hey there, Stephen Hand with RE/MAX Southern Shores and the Right Hand Group. Hoping you're having a wonderful day today. And so today's video, we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about closing costs that the seller has to pay in Horry County, okay? I know you just were hoping for such an enthralling video to watch today about closing costs, but I hope that I will make this as interesting and useful for you as possible. If you are buying a house, then you don't really necessarily need to think about these numbers because you have different closing costs as the buyer, but the seller has closing costs that they are responsible for. There are some costs that are kind of fixed costs and some costs that are what you would say negotiable. All right, so let's get into it. But before we do, if you would do me a favor, if you could just click that subscribe button and hit that bell for the most current content sent directly to you from us at the Right Hand Group, that would be great. So, seller closing costs. So when you sell your house and you have a certain number that you want to get from the house, you have to factor in these closing costs, okay? I think a lot of times people might look and say they were wanting to sell their house for $300,000 and they owe $150,000 on it, so they're going to make $150,000 on that house. Well, not so fast. There are some closing costs that you, the seller, have to pay and are responsible to you. So let's kind of go through those, shall we? Right here next to me is a nice little spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. They make me happy. But as you see, we're just going to base this on a contract price home of $254,000, okay? First thing you're going to see on there is what's called a deed recording fee, all right? This is what they charge you at the courthouse to, it's like a tax assessed to you as the seller record that at the courthouse. The way they factor this is it's the sales price times 0.0037, all right? The only person in my life that I know could do that in his head is my father. He could like not rattle that off like that. He's like Rain Man, it's crazy. But most of us use a calculator. It'll come up to $939.80, okay? Next thing is a fee that is charged by the courthouse, and that's your e-recording fee. Same with the state recording fee. Those are fees that are charged by the courthouse that every seller has to pay. It's not charged by the attorney's office. It's not some hidden fee that, oh, those attorneys are... It's just part of doing business, folks. Part of doing business. Now we get into what I would call our negotiable fees in the contract with the buyer, or fees that may not apply to you because you live in maybe a non-HOA community, okay? These fees are the certificate of assessment and the HOA transfer fee. What a certificate of assessment is, it's a fee that's paid that basically runs a check on the property to make sure that there is no money owed for the HOA, the back owed amount or anything like that, or that any kind of lien or judgment has been placed on the property because of the HOA. Some might ask, well, why is it that you just can't call up the HOA and say, hey, is there anything that's owed on this? It just doesn't work that way, okay? At some point in time, it was decided that there needed to be a certified document that protects the seller from ever being sued because there was anything owed on the property or there was a judgment or a lien on the property due to any kind of back owed dues or HOA or anything like that. HOA transfer fees. What an HOA transfer fee is basically your fee to leave the neighborhood, all right? May seem like a racket. It's a lot of times called a capital contribution. And yeah, it's kind of your goodbye fee, all right? This is, I've seen them as low as $200. I've seen them as high as $3,000 here in Myrtle Beach, okay? There's one neighborhood that is 1% of the sale price. So if you have a $600,000 house, that is going to be $6,000 that you are responsible for. So those fees right there, your certificate of assessment and your HOA transfer fee, that's negotiable that the buyer can pay those, okay? There's a section of the contract that has a section that talks about transfer fees. Who is responsible for that? If that is not checked, then that's by default going to be the seller covering that, okay? If you, the seller, want to use that in your negotiation and say, I feel like I'm giving this at a good price, but they need to be paying for that fee, you can for sure go and scratch that and have it so that they pay the fee when you do your counter offer, okay? Buyers, you can indeed ask for that when you do your negotiating. I've written up contracts in this market where we're paying such high prices. That's in a way, the least that the seller can do. And on the seller end, I almost expect that, okay? Unless there's some extenuating circumstance, I almost expect that there's going to be a transfer fee asked that the seller pays, okay? Now, you can also have HOA dues for the time that you lived in the property, whether it's, let's say it's monthly, okay? So in this case, our HOA dues, if it's $80 a month, and let's say somebody closed on the 15th of the month, that'd be $40 that they owe. That only makes sense, right? You're responsible for the time that you lived in the community. All right, now we're on to taxes. This is another fixed expense. This is another one that it is what it is. If you owe the taxes for the time in which you lived in the house in that year, okay? This gets paid to the buyers as a form of a credit so that when they get the tax bill at the end of the year, the money's already in their escrow account, okay? In this situation, let's say somebody lived there January to March, right? Let's say this closed at the end of March. That seller would owe $134.64. That will get credited to the buyer. You have what's called a CL100. This is another negotiable cost that the buyer could pay if you so ask them to. It's a nominal fee anywhere between $75 and $100. What it is an inspection to make sure that there's no elevated moisture in any parts of the house or any kind of wood-boring insects like termites, okay? If you're going through financing, banks require this, all right? So you know that. If you're not going through financing, doing cash, it's just smart to do that just because we live in the South and termites are a thing, all right? Then you have other fees like the FedEx fee to be able to get payoff and communicate with the bank, things like that. And then attorney's fees. I use Feldman and Melton attorneys here in Myrtle Beach because they are just a flat fee, okay? For closing on a seller side, it's $395. There's no hidden courier fee and admin fee and all these little hidden fees tucked in there. It's just a straight $395. In fact, today Jim did a great presentation for our agents. It's been $395 since I think he said 1995 when he started here at the beach. So yeah, that's a very competitive rate and I really like the services they do. And so that's what they do. If you choose to use somebody else or you don't have me representing you and we're not using Feldman and Melton, that may vary, okay? I've seen it as high as $1,000 and that's about as low as I've seen it, about $395. And then we're on to Realtor Commissions, okay? The Realtor Commission is the negotiated price at the listing presentation that we do with you, the seller. This is in the listing agreement. It's understood that the commission is going to be paid out in a certain way. It's paid out, we have let's say it's just one person representing both sides. You agree to what that looks like. Typical for me is 6%. There is some adjusting on that depending on the circumstance, but typical in our market is 5 to 6%, okay? More on that on a later video on if you think you're getting a discount agent, what you're really not getting. But then that gets broken up, okay? Typically it's 50-50, all right? So if it's 6% commission, that $12,700 number gets broken into two halves. One for my half for doing my work as representing you, the seller, and then the other half going to the buyer's agent representing the buyer, okay? And then we have a payoff amount for the amount that you owe the bank if you have a loan on the property, okay? So in this case, this person still owes the bank $127,000, and so it gets paid out of the proceeds from, this settlement. Now, let's say we're not seeing a lot of this right now. I don't know anywhere in the country where we're seeing this, where somebody might be upside down, where they are maybe underwater. Maybe they owe more on the house than they're getting when they sell. That sounds familiar to about 15 years ago. Well, in that situation, you would have to come to the table with money to be able to make that settlement and pay off that debt. We're not seeing that right now. Hopefully not going to see that for a very, very long time, just because the market's been so hot and people have been bringing more equity to the table. So there's more stake and more ownership in the properties. So that's kind of the breakdown on closing costs when it comes to the seller's side. All right. I hope that's been very helpful information for you. If you have any more questions about closing costs or selling your home, or you need someone to list your home here in the Grand Strand, please reach out to me. You can connect with me a couple of different ways. You can call me at 843-602-5517. You can email me at Stephen, that's STEPHEN, at rhrgroup.net. Or you can go to our website if you needed more information on us, wanted to learn a little bit more about me. You can just simply go to www.rhrgroup.net, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you get the most current content sent to you. Hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy the spring-like weather we got outside today, and I'll talk to you soon.